two men enter the dusty street, the backdrop an old 1800s town in the west. Their quarrel nobody knows. All that is known is one man will die and the other will become famous. This is Gunfighter Legends. Hello and welcome to Gunfighter Legends, presented by the Final Shot Saloon. We will be discussing gunfighters of the Old West. Sitting across the table from me, is an artist, a father, a husband, a fellow podcaster, also holding the whiskey bottle like a newborn baby. Mr. Adam Irv Andreasen, how are you, sir?
Perfect, my friend. Always whiskey, always Jameson.
What we're going to do on this show is we're going to discuss gunfighters of the Old West. I talked about it in a earlier show, how Adam and I actually kind of came up with this idea. I was tired of being a drifter, a lone gunman out on the West in the Final Shot Saloon. I always sat alone in the corner of the table. He was gracious enough to say that he'd like to come on the show with me and do a few of these. So this is what we're going to do. Today we're actually doing my favorite gunfighter of the Old West, Wild Bill Hickok. Did you know much about him before we even discussed it?
Well, you know the basics. You know that he was somewhat of a legend in the Western history. Came from the military, that type of stuff, and big tall tale teller, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And he kind of wrangles up Deadwood. Everybody knows kind of how he got killed and stuff like that. So it's the basics, but getting into this and learning more about it. Now, you said you were going to go into Wild Bill Hickok. I guess when we had discussed this, my whole idea was to possibly be the devil's advocate again and do something more of talk a little bit about the people that maybe have been the nemesis of these famous people,
right?
Whether they were good or bad. So I kind of got more into that as well. I didn't read a lot about Wild Bill Hickok. I've watched some movies and stuff like that, a couple TV documentaries, but I got more into the bad guy, the guy that kind of shot him. So
right.
I'm kind of excited about that. So no, I didn't know a lot about him, but I did know enough.
Yeah, one thing about, I think we should probably put a disclaimer in here is that as years go by and letters are found and this type of stuff, the history is always changing, right? I mean, what we've learned in the past, it seems like you watch these history. We've actually talked about it. I'm not a big fan of like the History Channel when they do these in-depth things of say Billy the Kid and all this, because it takes that romance out of it. What we thought was just this spectacular feat that they did, and we find out later it was like 30 seconds and one shot. It kind of takes that romance out of it. But I would say Wild Bill is probably one of the only gunfighters that lived his legend. You know what I mean? He actually lived through his popularity. So, we've got these dime novels that have definitely made his reputation explode, and we're going to get into a few of those stories. But, I think he's probably the one that, like I said, he'd lived through his legend. He lived through his popularity. Like today, we have these celebrities who have done nothing.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and they've really, I don't see how this happens, but it happens. And here we have a guy back in the 1800s who, no matter if it's an exploit but he actually lived through gunfights, right? So I mean, it's pretty exciting. But
yeah, I think you made a valid point though that nowadays there isn't very many people that can live up to a legend like him.
yeah, I mean, you post a few pictures on Instagram, and some people are famous, or YouTube, or
Right.
we're talking about guys who, for the lack of a better word, face down death. I mean, everybody from Wild Bill to Wyatt Earp to Billy the Kid to all these people who lived by the gun, died by the gun. Most of them, anyway. Very few lived out their life past, say, 50, or they were either shot, or I think Wyatt Earp is probably the only one who actually lived to a natural death. So, well, let's get into it. We're just going to go through a little bit of history here of Wild Bill, and then we're going to get right into his exploits. He was born May 27th in 1837 in Homer, Illinois. Now, is that considered the Midwest, Illinois?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so a Midwest boy.
Just like us.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Hey. Father William Alonzo Hickok, Mother Polly Butler Hickok. He's the fourth of 6 children. One sibling died at birth, 2 sisters, and 3 brothers. They had a family farm, and he spent a lot of his times in the woods hunting and shooting. I would say that's the start of our gunfighter right there.
Oh, yeah.
And in 1851, his family helped free slaves. 1852, his dad dies and the kids take over the farm, and William becomes primary hunter for the family, because I'm guessing he's a deadeye.
Right.
1856, we're moving along. James and one of his brothers go to Kansas to look for more farming land. His brother decides to go back home, and James decides he's going to stay and help with the Free State movement. For those who don't know what the Free State movement is, it was an anti-slavery movement organized in Kansas around 1855 to oppose pro-slavery Democrats. I don't want to get into politics. I'm just saying that's what it is. Just saying that's what the definition was. 1857 to 58, he joins General James Lane's Free State Army and meets another Western legend, William Cody. And that's going to come into a big deal later on. But 1860, the Pony Express starts, and William Cody is a Pony Express rider, and James Hickok rides shotgun on a stagecoach, or is the driver. Which I always thought he was actually the poster boy for the Pony Express.
The guy on the horse.
Yeah, I thought Hickok was actually that guy. So we're at about 23 years of age right now, and he's already done quite a bit of stuff. I kind of lost my spot there.
That's right.
This is what I would consider the years definitely before he became quote unquote Wild Bill, right? So I just kind of glanced over quite a bit of stuff there, but it kind of shows you the progression of his. I mean, at 23, we've joined an army, we've rode on a stagecoach, and he's moved away from home. I think we kind of see I hate the word drifter, but I would say we see a drifting soul here.
Or a loner.
A loner, that's even better.
Somebody who found out that maybe he was probably better by himself.
Yeah, especially when you're spending all that time in the woods and you're just practicing your gunfighter skills. So we're looking at 1861. I think he's about 24 years of age at this point. This is the Rock Creek Station, Nebraska, in July. Now this comes from Harper's Magazine. For people who don't know, this is the People magazine or Inquirer of today. I would like to say another disclaimer is that I have to state that the men of this time, especially of this caliber, they embellish their tales to seem bigger and badder than the next guy. And it's really either for bragging or survival. You know, you don't want someone thinking you're weak, especially back in this time period, because it was rough. It was tough. There wasn't the billion trillion laws we have today. You know, it was pretty, everything was new, especially with the Western movement, where you have laws are being made as we go. So
yeah, but you brought up Harper's Magazine and the fact that he talked to George Ward Nichols for the interview that he released. I mean, talk about a strategic way to tell your tale, whether it's tall or short, and get it out there for people to know. I mean, if you really think about it, it was one of the first advertisements for for Wild Bill Hickok, really.
Yeah, and you know, I'm pretty sure that the majority, especially let's just say George Nichols here, I'm sure his editing skills probably weren't the best, or they were the best because he probably embellished even more. You know, from I'm not reading exactly from the interview, but from what I got from it is that Nichols wasn't afraid to add, you know, so especially like this, the Rock Creek Station one where David, I think you pronounce his name McCandless. I'm terrible with last names.
McCandless? Yeah, McCandless. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me.
So if I say David, that's who I mean.
All right. Easier.
He was a bully. He was the leader of some desperados. David also, he had a lady on the ranch that Bill also visited. So there's that. We have that drama going on. He was even upset with Bill because he embarrassed him with what Hickok's shooting ability, and I guess they were wrestling. I forgot the actual name they used that I saw, but they must have been wrestling around, and Hickok showed him up. So between the gal and being embarrassed, we're looking at this bully getting his up and comings and probably getting upset. Let's take this stage to Rock Creek Station, 1861, a supply stop for immigrants, stage stop, and also a Pony Express office. The Oregon Trail splits Rock Creek into West Rock Creek and East Rock Creek. The Little Blue River is just west of Rock Creek Station. Bill Hickok was visiting Mrs. Waltman when there was a knock at the door. David McKennels, behind the other side with 10 of his posse, let Bill know they came to do him harm.
Come to kill you, Hickok!
McKennels yelled. Hickok grabbed a Hawkins rifle, grabbed his pistol, and all of a sudden became cool and calm. McKennels opened up the door to only to be met with the blast from the Hawkins rifle. It knocked him square in the chest and knocked him back outside. The other 10 men, seeing their leader shot, rushed into the house and started shooting with their shotguns. Bill, taking aim with his pistols, shot 4 out of 5 of the 10 men. Then started using the stock of the Hawkins rifle and clubbing every man in sight. Finally, Hickok grabs his knife and started slashing until he finds everyone is dead. I mean, that's an incredible story.
Yes, it is. Well, just visually, visually to even imagine what he went through to get through that. I mean, there must have been a lot of rage behind it.
Well, yeah, and you know, one thing that he mentions in the Harper magazine is that he became very calm.
Yeah.
he had a coolness, a calmness that came over him, which
Go ahead.
I can only say this from my shooting experiences is when you're in when he says you're in the calm or you get the coolness,
Mm-hmm.
that's a confidence and that's your zone. So he was definitely ready to take these boys on.
Well, and really looking at the McCannels or David and his family, it looks like they were part of an outlaw gang called the McCandless gang in the
Okay.
early 1860s. And they were well known for train robbery, murder, bank robbery, cattle rustling, and horse thievery. However, they are questioned surrounding the veracity of not only the allegations, but the existence of any such gang. So I got a feeling, if you think about it on the aspect that this was a gang and what Hickok was doing, I think he could justify what he did because they were outlaws and they were on the wrong side of his beliefs.
Right. Because he was more of a stand-up
Yeah.
fella at that time.
Yeah, I think he portrayed himself out like that, especially in the early stages.
And can you imagine? I mean, just because it's one of these ranch houses that are, I always know them as shotgun houses where you could shoot from the front door to the back door.
Yeah.
You know, it's just basically 4 walls and a curtain. And I mean, just for the visualization, I visualized there's from just the shotguns and gun smoke, it's filled with smoke. There's got to be definitely blood on the ground, on the boards. It's the sound inside that house has got to be incredibly deafening. And we've got 10 guys plus Bill yelling and fighting and and then we had I actually forgot her name, but we have the lady of the house who's probably in there screaming also. So just so chaotic.
Mm-hmm. Now,
yeah.
I was looking at a little more background information on the McCannels, and it looks like there's an article with a actual quote from the DeWitt Times News as told by the foreman of the company station. Because I believe where this happened, he had stopped at the Pony Express station with Doc, J.W. Doc Brink. And it says here, at the time of this affair, I was at a station farther west and reached the station just as Wild Bill was getting ready to go to Beatrice for his trial. He wanted me to go with him, and as he started on our way, imagine my surprise and uncomfortable feeling when he announced his intention of stopping at the McCandless home. I would have rather been somewhere else, but Bill stopped. He told Miss McCandless he was sorry he had to kill her man and took out $35, $923 today, and gave it to her, saying, "This is all I have. Sorry, I do not have more to give you." We drove on to Beatrice, and at the trial, his plea was self-defense, and no one appeared against him, and he was cleared. The trial did not last more than 15 minutes. That was more based on the trial, based off of Hickok, because they got off. Because the judge wouldn't allow one of the family members to testify. So they only heard the station agents, the people that work there, they only heard their end of it, and they got off on self-defense.
Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting.
And that's what's going to lead me into the more realistic story.
Perfect.
Of this, the Rock Creek Station.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got this fantastic
diatribe of great information.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely Old West, right? I mean it's filled with one guy, 10 bad guys.
Yes.
Guns, murder, knives, blood. We've got everything.
It's like a typical movie of this era, kind of like a Steven Seagal or a Rambo just walking in and massacring everyone.
That's a perfect example. I mean, really. I mean, we've got this great story. Now here's where the history, the facts. Oops. Let me just. Something happened here.
Not a problem.
Okay,
I do have a few more accounts
Okay, go ahead.
actual quote accounts from the witnesses. But get into the realistic story because I'll bring these in.
Now, the more realistic story, McCannell's probably did go to the house. He probably did call Hickok out. There really probably wasn't 10 men. Rather, it was probably both men having a standoff right there in the doorway. And it was heated. You know, we've got embarrassment. We've got a woman in the way, which is always the catalyst for a lot of, unfortunately, Hickok's incidences.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's how that started. It was told that Hickok said later that David made a move, and that's why Bill shot him, and that's how we get the self-defense acquittal, I guess you'd say.
Okay.
Some stories have said that David was the acting sheriff of Rock Creek Station, of that area. So, which makes me believe that he would be carrying a gun. If let's just say that's false, you're still going to be carrying a gun when you're going to call out a foe, especially of Hickok's nature. You're not going to go in there and start bullying him when you know he carries a gun also.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what the more realistic story is we have David and Bill. They're heated, goes to the door, calls them out. I truly think that McCannell's did go for say a sidearm, and that's how we get the self-defense plea. Later on, David's son apparently was there too. Says that his dad was not carrying a firearm. But what else would you say, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's your father.
So, yeah, I mean, if you could put Hickok in a bad light over this killing, I think I would say that's probably the best way to go, is say he shot an unarmed man.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he was unarmed. I don't think, like we were just discussing, that's not Hickok's nature. He was more stand up than that. He went for something. He made a wrong move in a heated situation. So I think that's the more realistic version. Although I do love that their 10 men came after him and took them all on in one. I think that makes for a better story. But
I was doing a little more research here on the McCannell's gang and David and his brothers and stuff in here, and what it was talking about was that one of the first accounts was published in 1882 by C.S. Jenkins and S.J. Alexander, who had arrived at the ranch within 2 hours of the shootout taking place and before the bodies were removed. According to them, David's brother James was a Southern sympathizer and had tried to persuade Hickok to join him and turn over the stage company's stock. After Hickok's refusal, James threatened to kill him, and later that afternoon, David and 3 others arrived with the intentions of carrying out the threat. So it looked like it was a disagreement on something when it came to the Southern, the war in the South. In 1883, D.M. Kelsley published Our Pioneer Heroes and This Daring Deeds, which contained a biography of Wild Bill based on Hickok's own accounts. Hickok claimed that he had killed 6 of the 10 members of the McCannell's gang, who had rushed in after using a log to batter the station door down. So they came to kill Hickok, and Hickok basically defended himself, is kind of what it sounds like.
Sure.
2 of these he claimed to have killed in a knife fight after he was wounded. Why did that jump up? Okay. I remember that one of them struck me with this gun, and I got hold of a knife, and then I got kind of wild-like, and it was all cloudy, and I struck savage blows, following the devils up from one side of the room to the other and into the corners, striking and slashing until I knew everyone was dead. I'm not sure if that was a quote by Hickok or if it was by one of the brothers. The remaining 4 attackers then fled. Hickok picked up a rifle and shot one dead. Another later died of his wounds. All of a sudden, it seemed like my heart was on fire. I was bleeding everywhere. I rushed out to the well and drank from the bucket and then tumbled down in a faint. Well, that sounds like Hickok.
Wow.
The motive for killing, probably the motive for killing was fear. Father had told Mrs. Wellman to tell her husband to come out. The Wellmans were the folks who lived there and kept the station. She said he wouldn't, and Father said it would. Father said if he wouldn't come out, he would go in and drag him out. I think rather than be manhandled, he killed Father. So
Hmm.
that's another a quote based off of one of the kids that was there.
Sure.
So I mean, just a few quotes that come out of it. And you talk about tall tales, right? You never know when it comes to history what's going to go on until somebody finds some lonely, rusted, molded out yellow note sitting in somebody's shoe locker at the bottom of their basement or at the top of their attic, and then all of a sudden here's an actual account.
Yep.
That's the hard part about history and the imagination in general. Like you were saying about the earlier story you talked about, everybody wants to embellish that that story and talk about those, enjoy those parts of it. Because like you said, those 10-cent books and stories that come out, I mean, that's what keeps everybody's mind coming back to these things. You enjoy that type of stuff.
And it's definitely just the thought of someone being able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we definitely like our Rambos and our Steven Seagal movies, and these guys are, almost invincible. So this was the first real incident of Hickok where people probably saw the celebrity in him, the what's the word I'm looking for? The invincibility of Hickok. So now, after this story, after this Harper Magazine version, this gets out, people are reading it. Now, if they see Hickok, what's the first thing that's going to come to mind? If he can take on 10 men, why, excuse me, why wouldn't it be, excuse me, why wouldn't he be able to take on one?
Oh, exactly. And I really think it comes to the term wild, right at the beginning of his name. I mean, that story right there, to take on 10 men, kill 6 of them, walk out bloody and bleeding and drink out of the trough the well. I mean,
Yep.
that's a wild man does stuff like that. And somebody out in the woods that, they didn't have anything, nobody around, just did whatever he wanted to do, chaotic, so to speak.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because so we've got this story, and it's definitely probably circulated within a year, or no, when did it come out?
65.
65, and this actually
Tut, Davis Tut.
No, the Rock Creek Station happened in 61.
61, yeah.
And then the article came out 7 years later in 1867.
Yep.
So we've got years here where this article hasn't even come out yet. But word of mouth, I'm pretty sure, definitely had to help.
Well, there was a lot, I think, that happened in between that, in between the first real shootout and attack that's been recorded compared to the story. There's a lot that happened in between. So I'm sure, like you said, the word of mouth or the tall tales that were traveling around from post to post were making its rounds. So this story probably came out well when it was needed, when everybody was talking about it. And this guy, this Colonel David, what's his name, decided to write this story. He found an opportunity of a lifetime to get into one of the biggest printing and news companies in the country.
Yeah, because that came out in 1867.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the Dave Tutt incident happened in 1865.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's like, wow. But you brought up his name, and I'm pretty sure the story of Rock Creek Station definitely had to help this. But they're saying, I kind of found I actually found it online. Of course, everything online is true, but they're saying that in early 1862, an incident in Independence, Missouri, he and his brother Lorenzo apparently helped to stop a lynch mob, and a woman called one of them Wild, or might have been just J.B. Hickok, stopping an angry mob outside an independent saloon, and a woman subsequently saying Good for you, Wild Bill. In any case, the name stuck, and thanks in no small part to Nichols. Why did Hickok help Nichols embellish his accomplishments? Again, the answer is complex. First, Hickok tended to be rather boastful. He also found telling tall tales quite amusing and may have sensed that a big reputation might serve him well. So,
Yes. He also went by the names of Duck Bill and Shanghai Bill.
yeah, Duck Bill because of his nose, right?
Yeah, his nose. And then after the McCall's incidents, when he grew his mustache, and then he started to become, after your story, he was being called Wild Bill.
So, I mean, I think that's cool. But I also like that he was fond of he also found telling tales quite amusing and may have sensed that it was a big reputation might serve him well. In which we find that he's a big gambler. He's a big drinker. So, as you move into saloons and people see Wild Bill Hickok standing at the table, I'm pretty sure that might draw in some attention.
Oh, exactly.
While he's telling stories across the poker table,
Mm-hmm. But you mentioned in between 1861 with the McCandless shooting and getting to the duel with Davis Tutt, which was back in 1865. So you're talking a 4-year span. And then the story comes out in 1867 in Harper Bazaar. There was a lot in between that time. I mean, that's a lot of time for someone to spend time and to go through after killing 6 people and nothing else happening afterwards. He ended up obviously going into the Civil War services, but they do mention that he was possibly a Union spy in Confederate territory during some of that time, which really is interesting in general because if you think about the demeanor of Wild Bill Hickok and what we see in the movies and all this other stuff and TV shows and stuff like that, I think they miss out on that aspect of who he was as a scout or as a spy or just in general what killing people will do to a man.
Yeah, and he definitely had, I would say, he was for the free slave movement.
Yes.
So anything that he could possibly do to help that cause, I think we see in those years that he definitely did.
Oh, exactly. And he wasn't an ignorant individual. He wasn't naive. No. He was obviously smart. He probably thought on the opposite end of most people at that time, especially traveling through the South and the West, because I'm sure racism and discrimination were rampant during that time.
Yep. And then, we've got definitely during this time period, we have, of course, the Civil War. We have that North-South rivalry. And, I think this is where we see our gunfighters of what we're going to be discussing this is where we see them come out of.
Yeah.
Because some gunfighters, they learned how to use a gun really well. Southerners, they'd go home and it's very possible that their homes were burned or not there anymore. So they had nowhere to go. This is where you kind of get that drifter mentality. And then you have, say, like these scouts and Wild Bill and some of these others that, now they're on cattle drives and, you find that sometimes it's the Southern anger towards the North created a lot of the gunfighters.
Yes. Yes.
Of course, here we have a Northerner who will go down in my own history as the gunfighter, the legend. But he was from the North.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because that Civil War actually, in my mind, created the gunfighter mythos, if you will. It created this span of violence, I guess you'd
also
say.
The genre. I mean, just in general of that time era.
Yeah.
The people, like you said, in the South were losing their homes. They didn't have any place to go. They had to find work where work was. There was also the expansion of the government moving west, stealing land from Mexico, the gold rush, all of that stuff on top of it. Riches, people becoming rich, trying to find that money, trying to find a place to settle. And along the way, a few fall off the trail trying to get to California during the gold rush. And where do they end up? In places, like Deadwood or
Yep.
Texas or Oklahoma, being murdered by Indians or fighting off Native Americans in that aspect on their travels. It's really interesting because you bring up whiskey. Obviously, that was one of his vices. Mine too. But where does one go after killing someone? Obviously, they're going to go in their head, and when to get out of your head, what do you end up doing? You go get whiskey.
Yes.
You drink. You end up in a tavern, and usually, what's in a tavern is the gambling aspect. So, one right after the other, you murder 6 people. Obviously in self-defense, if we go by what we read.
Sure.
Next thing you know, you're drowning in your sorrows of what you did. And the next thing you know, you find gambling. So
and that was the entertainment of that time.
Well, it was. But those things always were right next to each other. You had a saloon, you had gambling, you had a table gambling. So.
Yeah, a lot of it is just, that's why I'm always interested in the Old West, because you have so much.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like today where we've got computers, we've got iPhones, we've got, DVDs and, even say books. Books are easy to get now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everything is accessible. That's what I was looking for. Things are more accessible than they were back then, where they had to kind of create their own entertainment, whether it be with the saloon girls, whether it be marksmanship contests, gambling, or the drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing is for certain, and this is probably why I don't drink, but firearms and alcohol are never a good mix.
No.
Because the majority of your gunfights are over stupid shit, and they actually end up, you can almost guarantee one of them was drunk or both of them are drunk,
mm-hmm.
and it's over something dumb.
Yeah, something so small.
So it's just it's always interesting to me the entertainment value of what these guys kind of had to figure out for themselves,
Yeah. Well, you also had to try to step up and above and beyond some of the attitudes that you came across. Yeah, I mean, if let's hypothetically say that at the time everybody was drunk and drinking at that time. I drank, and sometimes excessively when it comes to whiskey. I know after 3, 4, 5 drinks, you're not yourself. And if everybody's in that mind frame, the embellishment of your own attitude, your own brain, your own mind, and that unfortunate connection between your head and your hand can lead to a lot of stupid things. It's amazing when you watch some of these movies and they have the one drunkard who can't take 2 steps forward, but can take 10 steps backwards in a Z shape. How they're the ones that are portrayed as being drunk. But really, when you walk into the saloon, I think everybody at that time was drunk. But
yeah, because I'm pretty sure they didn't serve orange juice.
No. You'd be lucky if you just got water.
Yeah.
If it wasn't rusty water or water out of the trough,
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's why I love talking about this stuff, because it's so vast.
Oh yes, definitely.
Well,
just like the land.
It was a simpler time, but also a rougher time. It's got that battle between, yes, it didn't have everything that's going on now, but man, people weren't living to 98. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, yeah, and there's that. And then, when it comes to the gambling aspect, I mean, I'm sure that causes a lot of trouble in one's life. I mean, especially when you talk about, when we get back to Davis A. Tutt and how that started and why Tutt, threatened Bill and why Bill may have killed him. Yeah,
let's get into that then. Perfect segue. I would consider this to be the showdown of showdowns. It's definitely where Hollywood got the showdown from, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
It's also where one of the sports that I love, fast draw, I think comes from. I mean, deep down, this is the beginning of so many movies
mm-hmm.
of the Old West. You've got 2 men that are angry at each other. you've got a crowd, you've got a dusty street, you've got all the mixes of what Hollywood loves, and I think this is where it comes from. Springfield, Missouri, July 21st, 1865. In the public square, Davis A. Tutt and Wild Bill square off. This apparently started over some money Wild Bill owed Tutt for the night before's game of cards. Tutt took Bill's watch, or Bill gave it to him as collateral. Don't think it really matters. He's got the watch. Bill did tell Tutt, don't go showing off that watch around town. And Tutt supposedly said he was going to wear the watch in the town square. Bill advised against it. Can you imagine? When I was reading up on this and I watched some documentaries, can you imagine Wild Bill Hickok looking over at you and saying, do not wear that watch across town?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but I might be handing that watch back.
Right.
And just going, hey, get back to me.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But so here's where the cool stuff starts happening. Springfield, Missouri, July 21st, 1865. Wild Bill sees Tutt and in a commanding voice tells Tutt not to walk across the square with that watch. The town becomes very still and very quiet. Dave, instead of reaching for the watch, draws his pistol to an already waiting Wild Bill Hickok, and both fire across the square almost simultaneously. Bill, using his .36 Colt Navy revolver, shoots Davis Tutt through his rib cage and through his heart at 75 yards. Just the visualization. We've got this town square. We've got probably some people off to the sides watching. You've got Wild Bill yelling out to Dave Tutt. I think it was something like, you best not be walking, unless dead men can walk, don't walk across the square. We've got, it's July, so obviously it's hot. So it's got the making of, and some people said it was high noon, but I don't know if that's true or not, but
yeah, I think with no pun intended, I think this is what set the stage for a lot of movies.
Yeah, most definitely.
You know, it was kind of one of the first ones of its kind.
And they didn't do the traditional, what you see in the movies where you're facing each other, like chest to chest. They actually turned to the side. And that's how Bill's bullet or ball went through the rib cage and out the other side, because you don't want, back then you did not want to give the biggest target. So if if you turn to the side, you've definitely got a tougher target, which makes this even more cool. Is that Wild Bill was already knowing that this guy was probably going to draw down on him. So he had his guns all to the ready, and fires at, if you turn to the
75 yards.
Yeah, 75 yards. And if you're looking at, not me, of course, but say back then guys were a little bit skinnier, you're talking a little bit bigger than 2x4s. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you really think about it, you're shooting at a 1 foot space.
Yeah, I mean that
about 12 inches.
That's amazing.
Granted, it's 6 feet, 5 foot and a half, tall, but you're looking at a foot wide. I mean, most people don't shoot targets that small back then.
No.
So I mean, the smartness, honestly, you narrow down your space of shot.
Right.
But the possibility of damage is 3 times worse if you get shot sideways.
Sure.
Because you're going through all your organs, you can hit more organs at the same time. If you're standing straight onto somebody, you could survive a bullet going through. You just have a wider stance, more space to shoot or get hit. So it in ways it kind of plays off itself as one of the best moves one could do. But it's also probably one of the most life-threatening moves one could get hit with. Because if you get hit from the side with your arm up right under the armpit, that's going through your lung, possibly your heart, and your other lung if it goes all the way through.
And we're talking a
And
36 caliber ball.
yeah,
I mean,
at 75 yards. Yeah. I mean,
it's
that's crazy.
I'm not saying it was a lucky shot, because I think we've established that he's a marksman.
Yes.
Definitely through the years that he's had pistol training, or not training, but he's used his gun. And just to think that he was steadfast at bullets coming at him, and he just
Exactly.
shoots this guy through the heart, or
And it could have been the numminess of the whiskey too.
Right.
I mean, maybe he just didn't think about it because, you know what, screw it. I'm here. I'm going to do this. I've done this before. I know a better way to get this done, and he did
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show his smarts on top of not just his courageousness or his wildness, quote unquote, you know.
We also see. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, you're making me love this guy even more.
Yeah. Well, this is why he's my favorite. I mean, this is why if someone goes, you know, they know I love the Old West. They go, "Who's your favorite?" I'm like, Wild Bill Hickok. You don't even have to ask. So Bill, again, he gets acquitted of the charge. It's self-defense. The one thing I never did find out, and I've read through some books here and looked online, I don't know if he ever got the watch back.
Yeah, I didn't find that.
Yeah,
either.
so I don't know if it was just one of those, somebody took it, or I don't know. I've never saw in any of these books if they got him, if he got his watch back.
Yeah. And then I guess that the interview with Colonel George Ward Nichols was done about a few weeks after this incident, because he actually did stand trial with a $2,000 bail.
Okay.
Which was reduced to manslaughter. He was arrested for murder, reduced to manslaughter, on trial for a $2,000 bail. Stood trial August 3rd, 1865.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't too long.
July 21st to August 3rd. It took about 2.5 weeks before the trial happened.
Interesting. And one thing we didn't find was the watch. But yeah, it's I'm sure. Can you imagine if someone just found that in like an old, like you see those shows where they've pulled down the this old chest, leather chest, and they open it up, and there's a note attached to this watch saying it's Wild Bill Hickok's watch. It's still got like might even have like a bullet ding in it or something. That'd be sick.
That would be. I mean, I know that when you talk about what's his name? I'm so horrible with names if it's not right in front of me. Billy the Kid.
Oh, sure.
And how people say that he was still alive and all that stuff. And then somebody come back and said, yeah, this is his things. And they found like a box full of like buttons and pins and a watch and all this stuff, which were actually found in photos back in history. I mean, it's the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know? It's so cool.
We're gonna, one of these times we're gonna talk about Jesse James, because he's got a huge list of everything.
Maybe that's who I'm talking about.
There's a guy that actually found some of Jesse James' gold that he stole.
Yeah.
So I don't want to talk about that now, because that's
we'll get to that
because we get carried away with that whole thing. But
right.
Let's so this was the basic showdown of showdowns. This solidified his legend to me, is this gunfight. But now let's talk about some sad news.
Yeah, right.
I mean, this is kind of the it's kind of the end of the era for Hickok. It's probably the most sad of, even, yes, his death was sad, but this is where we see I would even say his confidence kind of gets pulled. The rug gets pulled out from underneath him. That's probably the best way I could say it. Bill Hickok is the town's marshal of Abilene, Kansas. This is October 5th, 1871. What are we looking at here? Almost 6 years later. Yep. He's the town of Abilene. He's the oofta. Hickok is the town's marshal of Abilene. It's a rough cattle town, and he does keep the town as peaceful as he can. There's always been the lovers and haters of how he handled the town, but for the most part, I would say he kept the peace. Phil Cole is a Texan, Southerner. He's a gambler and brags that at some point he's going to kill Wild Bill. Wild Bill gets word of this, and he's definitely going to be on his guard the rest of the night. Abilene, Kansas, October 5th, 1871, around 9 o'clock at night. Marshal Hickok hears shooting outside of the Alamo Saloon. He goes to investigate and sees Phil Cole with a pistol in his hand. Phil says he was shooting at a stray dog. Just then, Phil pulls a second pistol and fires twice at Hickok. Bill draws both his Navy Colt revolvers and shoots Phil in the stomach. Just then, a figure comes out of the darkness, yelling, "Behind you, Bill!" Hickok, already on guard, not recognizing the figure, shoots the man dead. It turns out it was his good friend, Michael Williams. Wild Bill would never draw his guns again. I mean, kind of a real sad incident.
Yeah, for one to say, you know what, I just did something I don't think I would have ever done, is killed an innocent man.
Right.
You know, that's got to be the nail in the coffin, no pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah, and he actually takes Mitchell. Is it Mitchell? Yeah. Mitchell puts him into the Alamo Saloon, puts him on a pool table. He also orders I believe he ordered all the saloons to be shut down. And I would say this is, I don't think he ever, and I don't think any of us would. There's a difference between self-preservation and then there's an accidental shooting. And I just don't think any of us, no matter how hard we are, would recover from that.
No, I don't think so either. You know, and it is going to lead you down a path, the rabbit hole, so to speak, of self remorse, self-deprecation. You know, drinking a lot, gambling a lot, and having sex with many whores in the saloons, whatever it may be. You know, because I know he wasn't a man. I mean, he was a man of many women, but I believe he didn't get married very often.
No, he did get married later on, but I think it was in 1875 or something. But like you said, it's just, we see he slowly declines.
Yes.
And I think this is between now and his death, which is in 76. We've got 5 years of a heavy decline. Like you said, he drinks more, he's gambling more. He tries to actually be sheriff or marshal of other towns, and they don't want him because they think he's reckless. So now you feel like your reputation is tarnished. I mean, you've been on this highest plane up until 1871, where people adored you, feared you, right? And you were walking the walk, and then this happens.
And so to put this into perspective a little bit too, I mean, he dies a year after my age right now. I'm 38. And in a year he dies, and he's done all that stuff in his lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, nowadays you got to go and get an education to be a cop or a sheriff or a marshal. You got to work the ladder and run up and down this and that. Getting into the military, I mean, just that alone is a minimum 4 years, unless you get, you know, kicked out of the military for being nutty or stupid or doing stupid shit. But I haven't done half this stuff. I've done it all in a video game or talking about it on a podcast.
Yeah, me too.
I haven't done half the stuff yeah, exactly. But I haven't done half the things that this man might have done or has done in his whole life, you know. And at that age, you know, I couldn't imagine dying in a year either. Yeah. From a gunfight, you know, while being drunk and all that other stuff. So,
you know, and the one thing that I found, this was tragic. This was definitely a mistake that I don't think even police officer, any military man, anybody who works with firearms on a daily basis this is the one thing that is the last thing they ever want to think of. They don't want to shoot an innocent or a friend, you know?
Yeah.
And the other tragic part of this is as the years go by, like I said, we see the more excess happening because, as you pointed out, you drowned your sorrows. Now we've even got his friend who just was shot by his own gun. He's definitely on this decline. Well, he can't get a job. You know, he's reckless. So he tries to go and do the Buffalo Bill Roadshow, Wild West show, where he's playing himself.
Yeah.
And I would assume that's almost an insult being where he's come from. What do they say? A caricature of himself? Character. Yeah, you're right.
Caricature.
Jeez. So
you know what?
It's got to be tough for him to do that, tell his stories, play with sometimes he had blanks in his gun and he was still drinking. And it's got to be one of those, I don't want to say humiliating, but I would assume that it would still be a little humiliating.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think so too. And then just in the fact that you're replaying all these instances in your life, it's going to make you self-evaluate yourself maybe in a different way. Eventually, you're going to look at it like, what I did at that point was probably worthwhile. And now you're downplaying it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I can see how one may feel like what they did might be not right, as well as maybe a worthless life. Like, I could have done things better. I could have been a better person. I could have done this differently. I mean, psychologically, I think what he did when he was on the shows that he did was probably more self-defecating than the drinking and the gambling.
Yeah, because he definitely didn't like it.
No, absolutely not.
There's incidences where he actually shot out the lights that were on him.
Yes.
So there's the reckless part, reckless abandon, I guess you'd say, where he was done. And that's the tough part about this whole the story of Wild Bill. We're going to get into his death here, but the real sadness is that he was. They called him flamboyant. They called him larger than life, and he was living his legend, And then slowly but surely, after this Abilene incident, he just it tears him up, and he's not the man he was before it. So
most definitely,
we definitely see the drifting. We see, a lot of internal recklessness now. So it's very, it was kind of the real sad part about the story as I was reading it and looking it up. But, so here's I don't know it's the murder of Wild Bill.
Yes. The infamous murder. I mean, this is a murder probably that, unlike most characters of the Wild West, this murder really stands out as one of the murders. And there's a lot more to it. A lot more people know about it. You can't go back and find a lot of information about a lot of the murders of a lot of the Westerns because you got to take the tall tales of many whiskey drinking men. But as Wild Bill was in the Scouts of the Plains show back in 1873, around 1876, Hickok decided to head to Nuttall and Man's Saloon in Deadwood, Dakota, which, I'm sure we'll talk about later. The TV show on HBO, Deadwood, as well, kind of goes through a lot of this stuff. And
I just wanted to quick point out, because it does, we were talking about him being married.
Yes.
In 1876, March 5th, he marries Angus Lake. So this is the same year of his death.
Yes.
Months before. Yep. I just wanted to throw that in there because I didn't have it in my notes.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, I was looking at that earlier too because a lot of people thought that maybe Calamity Jane was one of his women as well.
Yeah,
They fancy each other.
Yeah, it's funny because she claims that they were married, but I think I think she was one of those gals that liked his celebrityness. You know, even then, they could have been friends, but there was rumors that they didn't even really know each other. So it's kind of a weird. We should probably do
a female.
Yeah, a show on her once just to kind of see how that all plays out. But
definitely. Well, there's a quote here too, also from Wild Bill, is something he wrote to Agnes. Read in part, Agnes, darling, if such should be we never meet again, while firing my last shot, I will gently breathe the name of my wife, Agnes, and with wishes even for my enemies, I will make the plunge and try to swim to the other side. So not only was he a whiskey drinker, but like me, when I drink whiskey, he gets poetic. Anyway, so yes, so he gets into Deadwood, and obviously his time in Deadwood isn't very long.
No, I think it's 2 weeks. Deadwood, South Dakota, August 2nd, 1876. Wild Bill is gambling in the Nuttall and Mann's number 10 saloon with his back to the back door. Jack McCall walks through the front door of the number 10 saloon, walks to the bar, then heads to the back of the saloon, turns and pulls his pistol, puts it within inches of the back of Wild Bill's head, and pulls the trigger. Damn you! The ball from the pistol goes through Hickok's head and into Captain Macy's right arm, killing Wild Bill instantly. McCall runs through the back door of the saloon. When McCall got caught, he would later state that Hickok shot his brother and that the killing was out of revenge. Now, others say that there was outside influences that wanted Hickok out of the way. No matter what it is, it's a mess. And on March 1st of 1877, the murderer Jack McCall was hung.
There's a lot of information in between all that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure we'll get into it. But the part that I always found interesting is that they wanted Hickok out of the way.
Yes. And they thought maybe he'd become a marshal of that area, and they didn't want him marshaling that area.
And because it's a lawless town, because the people of Deadwood, the saloon keepers, the storekeepers, everybody was making money.
Yes. And they didn't want the government involved. They didn't want anybody involved telling them what they could or couldn't do.
The minute you start messing with people's money, they're going to definitely take out people who will stifle their money-making ability. And saloon keepers, such as Al Swearingen, who was making big bank every night, every week, running his own show, just making huge amounts of money.
Through corruption, though. A lot of it was corrupt.
Yeah, it was dirty. Everything was just dirty. But I could see where people of his profession would not want Wild Bill there. So that part always interested me because it's a political move.
Yes. Oh, a business move as well.
Yeah.
And we all know when business and politics get together, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yes. You could end up with a dead man's hand.
Yeah.
But so back to Jack McCall. I mean, there's not much about him that is out there anywhere on the internet or any documentary type stuff. There's a lot of TV shows and movies that have him portrayed. Deadwood, a lot of Wild Bill movies. He's always in there because obviously he's going to go down in history as the man who killed the infamous and the amazing Wild Bill Hickok. Jack McCall basically lost a hand in poker to Wild Bill Hickok. And the insult, which many think was the reason that McCall killed Wild Bill Hickok, was the fact that Hickok took all his money and he basically offered McCall enough money for breakfast the next day. Let me see if I can find the quote here. Okay, so when a seat opened up at the table, a drunk man named Jack McCall sat down to play. McCall lost heavily. Hickok encouraged McCall to quit the game until he could cover his losses and offered to give him money for breakfast. Though McCall accepted the money, he was apparently insulted, and the next day, Hickok was playing poker again. He usually sat with his back to the wall, which everybody knows that's another thing about Wild Bill Hickok. A smart man. Never put your back to a door. Always watch what's coming, because if you can't see what's coming, how are you going to defend yourself, you know? So the day that he got shot, he came to the table, actually asked someone to move positions with him, and everyone at the table refused, which I'm sure starts the conspiracy theory that this was something everybody knew about, because they never gave him the opportunity to usually sit where he wanted to sit with his back to the wall.
Sure.
McCall walks in, like you said, 2 inches from his head, pulls the trigger. Bullet goes through, goes into the arm of another man at the table, Captain Macy's. And at that moment, Wild Bill is only holding 4 cards in his hand. So to me, it sounds like the trigger was pulled as he was discarding, getting ready for a new card. And in his hand, he was holding 2 black aces, 2 black 8s, which is now infamously known in the poker world as a dead man's hand. Mm-hmm. After that, McCall was basically dragged and put into trial for the murder of Wild Bill Hickok. And he was, I'm sorry, just to give you an idea what revolver he was using was his 18-inch Sharps improved revolver. Not a very good weapon, I'm sure. Also, so he goes to trial and he's acquitted because, yes, he says that he was there to get revenge on Wild Bill Hickok for murdering his brother. Hold on, give me 1 second here. All right, there's a small quote here that Hickok had actually told some of his friends, one being Charlie Utter and others who were traveling with him, that he thought he would be killed while in Deadwood. So he kind of maybe thought he was going to be killed. And I'm sure at that point when he sat down in his chair, you know, anything is possible.
Yep.
It might have been on his mind at the time. One would only maybe speculate that and hope, you know, through the big story. Like, you know, he sits down and he's thinking about this, you know, this is the day I'm going to die. Maybe he accepts it. Maybe he doesn't. But we can get into that in the Deadwood episode. McCall basically goes to trial, gets acquitted because it was not self-defense, a revenge kill for the murder of his brother. Later on, he's left town and he's found boasting that he's the one that killed Wild Bill Hickok.
What an idiot.
And eventually he goes to trial again for a second trial. After bragging about killing Hickok, McCall was rearrested. The second trial was not considered double jeopardy because of the irregular jury in the first trial, because Deadwood was an Indian country and the laws didn't apply. So there was a loophole, and this is why they could retry him. The new trial was held in Yankton, the capital of the Dakota Territory. Hickok's brother, Lorenzo Butler, traveled from Illinois to attend the retrial. McCall was found guilty and sentenced to death. Leander Richardson, a reporter, interviewed McCall shortly before his death and wrote an article about him from the April 1877 issue of Scrivener's Monthly. I have yet to find anything more than this quote. As I write the closing lines of this brief sketch, a word reaches me that the slayer of Wild Bill has been arrested by the United States authorities, and after trial has been sentenced to death for willful murder, he is now at Yankton DT awaiting execution. At the second trial, it was suggested that McCall was hired to do his work by gamblers who feared the time when better citizens should appoint Bill the champion of law and order, a post which he formally sustained in Kansas border life, with credit to his manhood and his courage. Jack McCall was hung in 1877, which is March of 1877. So you're talking August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, so 7-8 months after he killed him, and buried in a Roman Catholic cemetery. The cemetery was moved in 1881, and when his body was exhumed, the noose was still found around his neck. And that's so this says. I went to a few other sites, and I was reading up on Jack McCall, and it kind of talks about him as like his family. And supposedly, let me see here, not much is known about Jack McCall. Murdered Wild Bill Hickok in the number 10 Saloon in 1876, according to research. McCall was born around 1851 in Jeffersontown, Kentucky. He was reported to have been in a Republican River County near the Kansas-Nebraska border in 1869. He was employed as a buffalo hunter and is thought to be a cattle rustler. Though has not been documented, he likely bounced around in the cattle and railroad towns of Kansas, waiting a gold rush. Although there is no photographs of him, many say that he was a thick chestnut hair, somewhat pointy head, a small sandy mustache, and a small mouth, snub-nosed and cross-eyed. He may have been a small goatee and was described as having a florid complexion and a double chin. He apparently used aliases during this period, two of which were Curly Jack and Bill Sutherland. So obviously he was not using his real name.
Yeah, he was a piece of work.
Yeah, he was a piece of work. Signed into Wyoming around 1875 and privately gravitated toward the gold rush back in 1876. It did talk about the second trial a little bit more. McCall went to Wyoming, boasting in stage stops and saloons along the way that he was the killer of Wild Bill Hickok. Colonel May followed Jack from Deadwood and reported him to the authorities. So somebody left Deadwood, Colonel Jack, or Colonel May, I'm sorry. And then that's where someone that knew the law a little better than everyone else decided to retrial him. McCall read the Bible, corresponded with autograph seekers, and was visited by the priest while waiting execution. He wrote this letter, sent to the Yankton Marshal in the Merchants Hotel of Louisville, Kentucky, February 25th, 1877. To the Marshal of Yankton, dear sir, I saw in the morning papers a piece about the sentence of the murder of Wild Bill Jack McCall. There was a young man by the name of John McCall. I'm sorry, this wasn't by Jack. This was by someone else. Mary McCall. There was a young man by the name of John McCall left here about 6 years ago who has not been heard from the last 3 years. He has a father, mother, and 3 sisters living here in Louisville who are very uneasy about him since they heard about the murder of Wild Bill. If you can send us any information about him, we would be very thankful to you. This John McCall is about 25 years old, has light hair, inclined to curl, and one eye crossed. I cannot say about his height, as he was not grown when he had left here. Please write as soon as convenient, as we are anxious to hear from you. Very respectful, Mary A. McCall. So it sounds like the mother, his mother, wrote to the Marshal of Yankton, describing her own son, who may have left as a vagrant at a very, very young age. 3 sisters, no brother. So obviously the whole idea of the trial of saying, I killed him because he killed my brother, thought it would help him get off on the trial, maybe make a name for himself. Being a young kid, if he left at a very young age where he wasn't fully grown, to the point where his parents didn't even know him, to me, it only suggests that this kid was a hellion. You know, he was looking to make his name, just following the stories of many famous people, and found himself in the position to say, you know what, I'm drunk, I'm stupid, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm going to kill Wild Bill Hickok.
And that's what's so amazing about this part of Wild Bill's story, is because this guy, it could go so many different ways. Yes. I mean, obviously he doesn't have a brother, so we're lying about that, right?
Yep.
So do we have outside sources promising him a bunch of stuff, a good life if he does this?
Or a land of gold rush.
Right. Or, you know, or is he just, like you said, just looking to make a name for himself? Or was he that embarrassed about taking the money for breakfast?
Exactly. I mean, and being a younger child or a younger kid, you know, Hickok being 38, 39 years old at the time, and this kid maybe being 25, 24, 23, no one really knows, because they really don't even know the history of them. They're just going by the assumption that these people are related.
Right.
You know, that's a pretty impressionable age.
Yeah. And I think anybody could talk this kid into anything.
Yes, definitely.
And that's kind of what kind of my thought about it, you know, is that somebody may have pulled him off to the side with greater influence and just said, look, don't worry about it. You do this, we got you covered.
Yeah.
And like you said, we already had, 2 trials?
This is this. Yeah, the second trial is the one that got him hung.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's that, don't worry, you're not in, they could have said to him, don't worry, you're in an Indian or you're in a lawless land. We'll protect you. Well, here we find that that's not true. So it's kind of interesting because we've got a ton of, what do you call it? It's just an odd setup.
It is. And the unfortunate event, and when it comes to odd setups, is there's never a lot of information to go by. You kind of got to go by speculation.
Yeah. And we've got what, three different could be's. We've got outside influences. We got that he was embarrassed. And we've got that he just wanted to make a name for himself.
Exactly.
Because we have to kind of throw out the whole brother thing, right? Because he doesn't have a brother.
Well, and it was later found out basically that he doesn't have a brother. I mean, if you kind of take the evidence in front of you from Mary McCall, who wrote the letter to the marshal, I mean, one would have to say, yeah, he doesn't have a brother. He has three sisters. He probably wasn't well liked. His mom and dad probably loved the girls more than him. He was probably abused. Probably put down a lot, left at a very young age, ran away, decided to make something of himself. I'm smarter than you, Dad.
Yeah.
Probably at the age of 14, 15 years old.
And that was old back then.
Yeah.
That's some people were getting married at that point. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of wanted to.
It stands the test of time. We're talking about it about 150 years later. He pretty much made a name for himself. Just wasn't a positive thing.
Yeah. And like you said, the only way that he got famous is shooting one of the greatest gunfighters in the Western
United States. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something that it was actually in True West magazine. They said number 10 Saloon, Dakota Territory, August 2nd, 1876, around 3 p.m. Jack McCall enters the saloon from the front. He walks to the upper end of the bar, then moves down to the gold scales, which is, if we're looking at the number 10 Saloon, it's actually towards the end of the bar. And after hesitating at the scales, he starts to go towards the rear door. He abruptly turns, aims his pistol at Wild Bill, and fires. After shooting Hickok, McCall challenges the others in the saloon, then runs out the back door. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because the number 10 is, again, like one of those shotgun houses I was explaining. It's just kind of a front door and back door, and you could shoot from the front door to the back.
Yeah.
So no matter what, he saw Jack McCall walk in.
Either way, yeah.
Because I'm just going to kind of go through some 5 myths of the shooting. Myth 1, Wild Bill sits with his back to the front door. The fact is he can easily see the front door. 2, he falls when the myth is when he is shot, Wild Bill falls forward, probably protecting his hand, you know what I mean? He actually falls sideways, or some say backwards, after he gets shot.
Okay.
Myth 3, his card hand spills onto the table. And the fact there is he hits the floor, the cards fall from his hand. This is the interesting one. The hand Hickok is holding is aces and eights. That's the myth. The fact is no one knows what hand he holds. Cards go flying everywhere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then the myth, whatever number I'm on, when Wild Bill is shot, the gunfighter reacts so quickly he draws both 6 guns. Fact, his only movement is a slight jerk of the head.
Okay.
But the one that I kind of want to talk about is the aces and eights. Now, for years, up until just this month, I always thought that was true. And they're saying
until
that
you read something about it?
Yeah, it's actually, I'll give props to True West Magazine, November 2016. And they're very good at their facts. But which you can see that if he falls backwards and people are up, probably scared, whatever, I could see where cards can be lost. But it's very interesting that these are the cards that they picked, aces and eights.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah.
Well, I was looking into the dead man's hand in general, like the history of it or how it came about. There isn't very much information about it, but there is a book by a Western historian, Carl W. Brahan. It says that the cards were retrieved from the floor by a man named Neil Christie, who then passed them on to his son. The son in turn told Mr. Brahan of the composition of the hand. And this is a quote. Here is an exact identity of these cards as told to me by Christie's son. The ace of diamonds with a heel mark on it, the ace of clubs, the two black eights, clubs and spades, and the queen of hearts with a small drop of Hickok's blood on it.
Oh.
Another biographer, Joseph Rosa, wrote about the makeup of the hand. The accepted version is that the cards were the ace of spades, the ace of clubs, two black eights, and the queen of clubs is the kicker. However, no contemporaneous source for this exact hand can be found. The solidification in gamers' parlance of the dead man's hand as two pair aces and eights didn't come about until after the 1926 publication of Frank Wilstoch's book, Wild Bill Hickok, The Prince of Pistolers.
Interesting.
50 years after Hickok's death. So the term dead man's hand is 50 years later after he was murdered.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's a lot of information. I mean, just so many accounts.
Yeah, we're just brushing over it.
Yeah, very, very, very much so. I want to look more.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the kind of the purpose of the show, is that we definitely want you guys to go out and grab Joseph Rose's books, read more on it, and
email us.
Yeah, you can always email us and let us know. But that's what's exciting about this show for me anyway, is that we get to explore these gunfighters, and it's just, I always don't like to mislead anyone, or I'm not into lying. So that's why I got to say the disclaimer again. Stuff will always change.
Yes.
And that's like this dead man's hand. We've got the story. We got one myth that the cards went flying. Then you just read that the guy grabbed the cards. It's pretty exciting to have that romance and that what's the word I'm looking for?
I'm not sure. Romance is a good one. I mean, it is a romance.
Yeah, it's very cool that the stories and the built up and the everything's built up around these Western figures. It's very, very cool.
Originally before the murder of Hickok, and that term 50 years later came out, a dead man's hand was actually consisted of jacks. All three jacks consisted of three jacks and a pair of tens. Jacks and sevens are called the dead man's hand in the 1903 Encyclopedia of Superstition Folklore. Also, a reference of dead man hand is jacks and eights in 1907, which is basically after the death of Hickok. So there's two different terms, I mean, if you talk about the dead man's hand, but the most famous one, obviously, that stands 150 years the test of time, is the two eights and two aces, blacks.
Yeah, and why not?
Right? Why not? Why not keep it going?
It seems so cool. Yeah. And it's funny because I've been to Deadwood, I think 6 times.
Holy moly!
And I've never visited Wild Bill Hickok's grave.
Really?
Yeah.
Of all things you've never done.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that silly? But something kind of, Wild Bill's fame was so great that 3 of his grave markers have been chipped away or stolen over the years. And I think now it's actually in a fence. If you look at up on Deadwood Boot Hill or whatever it's called, they actually put a fence up around his monument because people keep taking stuff.
Yes.
So
So they say here that Wild Bill Hickok was wearing a Smith & Wesson Model 2 Army revolver when he died.
oh, really?
Yep. Described as Hickok Smith & Wesson number 2, serial number 29963, a 32 rim fire with a 6-inch barrel, blued finish, and varnished rosewood grips. That sounds like a good-looking gun.
Yeah, it does.
The gun did not sell because the high bid, $220,000, did not meet the reserve price set by the gun's owners. It looks like somebody tried to sell them off.
So they're still out there.
Yes.
Mm.
And not only is his death place or burial a famous place, so is his birthplace.
Oh, Homer?
Yeah, the Wild Bill Hickok Memorial is set up where he was born, which is now a historical site in Illinois.
Oh, very cool.
Now that's close. I could go to that.
Yeah, maybe I'll pick you up on my way.
There you go. Sounds like a plan.
So we've got this. We've always talked about the women of throughout Wild Bill's life, and it seems to have a kind of a common theme of maybe some animosity through others.
Yes.
Here to me was it when I read this, Adam. I actually laughed out loud, and we all know George Armstrong Custer.
Yes.
Got a little bighorn, arrogant. Keeps going.
Blonde-haired.
Yep. But let me just read this because this is just, I love this. Hickok dazzled many women, including George Armstrong Custer's wife, Libby. There were even rumors of an affair. In any case, Libby, Custer's wife, wrote the following about him in her 1890 book, Following the Guidon.
Physically, he was a delight to look upon. Tall, lithe, and free in every motion. He rode and walked as if every muscle was perfection, and the careless swing of his body as he moved seemed perfectly in keeping with the man, the country, the time in which he lived. I do not recall anything finer in the way of physical perfection than Wild Bill.
Giddy up a mau.
Yeah, right? Yeah, she seemed a little smitten by him.
Yeah. And I'm not a Custer fan. So when I read this, I was like, well.
I like Libby now.
Yeah. I mean, come on now. So
that's awesome.
I just wanted to end it on something kind of a little more, not so sad, but I find that very telling and very funny that she was that smitten. But
Libby was a very, very beautiful woman, though, too.
I
don't know if you've ever seen any pictures of her, but
I haven't.
I mean, when I look at her and I see Custer, I'm going, you get that total, what the is she doing with him?
I'll have to look her up.
Yeah, she's a beautiful woman.
Really?
If you look at pictures from that era, most definitely. You have your messenger open?
I'm gonna look her up right now.
All right. She is. Put it this way: if this was Westworld, I'd go back in time or go into that little gameplay that they have just to go see her.
Well, damn!
Holy moly!
Look at
Yeah, she's gorgeous.
that. Wow.
Yeah, we may have to do an episode on women of the West.
Yeah, we might. That's amazing. Huh. So that's kind of just an overview of Wild Bill Hickok. I think, we definitely could, there's definitely some empty spots that we kind of left open.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll come back to that again.
Yeah, and I definitely didn't want to I didn't think we have to go through the whole, the gaps that we had. We didn't have to fill in the years because we definitely want people to go and check out Joseph Rose's books and watch a bunch of stuff. But these are kind of key moments. I think Adam would agree that these are key moments in Wild Bill's history.
Yes.
We've got the Rock Creek, we've got Dave Tutt, we've got his the Abilene incident, and then we've got the murder. Those four things I think stand out probably
major milestones of his life.
Yeah, and definitely solidified his legend.
Mhm.
And like I said, he lived his legend really up to the end.
Yes.
So you don't see that from a lot of gunfighters of the Old West. So I think that's why, to me, he is an Old West a gunfighter legend. So
Yes.
So now what we kind of want to do is we kind of discussed. We were going to do this as a separate show, but I don't think we need to. I think with all the fresh information, I think it's kind of going to be kind of fun to talk about maybe a couple of movies or TV shows that portrayed the gunfighter that we've been talking about, Wild Bill. I think we definitely talked about Wild Bill with why is my mind going blank?
I don't know. I mean, one of the most notable shows right now, honestly, when it comes to Wild West is Deadwood, HBO. Yeah. And Wild Bill makes an appearance in there probably in 6 episodes?
Yes.
Roughly, first 6.
And there's definitely some Hollywood leniency on the story.
I think so too, and I think there's some interpretation put into it. I went back and watched twice, basically, the 2 episodes of right before he got murdered and when he got murdered, and just watched it again yesterday, actually. And I really, after what I've read and obviously what we've discussed today, I like the interpretation. I like the character of Jack McCall. What's his name? I'm so bad at flipping names.
What's he look like?
The guy who played Jack McCall in Deadwood TV series. He also played another character in that.
Yeah,
TV
he played
show.
that sadistic guy that killed the soiled doves.
Yes. What's his?
But he, I think he played just the perfect.
Garrett Dillahunt.
Okay, he definitely played a good, run-down, dirty, scummy person.
Yeah, he's got that look to him.
Yeah.
You know? And they really made McCall look ignorant, just downright stupid in the show, which kind of, I mean, if you really think about it, runaway teen, trying to make his way, trying to make his name in history. He had a really vulgar mouth, like to use the word cunt a lot.
Yeah.
One of my favorite words, by the way. But yeah, he does a great job playing the character. Just, giving you that ignorant, dumb, stupid, childlike attitude.
Yeah.
Like I beat Hickok. I beat him in gambling. Then I go back at him, and Hickok kicks my ass. I mean, my butt. Sorry, excuse my language.
That's right.
And then there's that revenge note.
Yeah.
And it really does seem through the show in Deadwood that they go off the revenge end of it all. It doesn't seem like there's much of a conspiracy. You see the conspiracy in the background with the saloon owner constantly talking about Hickok, worried about Hickok. As he said in the show, I was weeping with my thoughts in my room about how I was going to deal with this individual, and here this guy goes ahead and takes care of it for me.
Yep.
So in a way, it doesn't go with what we've seen in the history books that we've come across, but I really like the way it's played out in the show.
Yeah.
It seems more realistic to a point if you go off the revenge kill. Yep.
And I think Carradine, who plays Wild Bill, actually does a really fine job keeping. You can almost tell that he's kind of a beaten individual.
Yes.
Just through the stuff that we've discussed now, really puts in light of why he was the way he was. He just kind of was drifting throughout Deadwood. He gambled. Charlie Utter, who was a real character, or a real person, he was doing businesses for Wild Bill. He kind of got him set up, and if Wild Bill comes in here and plays, he kind of gave. I can't remember how he put it, but he said that he was going to I'm trying to set him up
Yeah.
for his wife. And they kind of go through that. And it's very interesting that, if you take everything else away, dealing with Seth Bullock and the ride to go find the little girl and stuff like that, we see that Wild Bill is just, he's almost came to Deadwood to die, because he even tells Charlie Utter, why can't you just leave me die the way I want to?
Mm-hmm.
And their friendship is actually pushed. But I think Carradine did a fantastic job portraying this character of the West who was tired, and I think, like we said, was ready to move on.
Well, I mean, I think he reached his wit's end on his life and on what he was doing. And you're right, Carradine does a very good job in portraying that. He seems, though, smitten at times when it comes to the way things are going there. You see him struggle between that acceptance of I'm going to die, also trying to be a good person, going out to look for the girl, making friends with
Bullock and Sal.
Yeah, Bullock and Sal, yeah. And it's I don't know how to explain it, because you see so many Wild Bill movies and TV shows and documentaries and stuff like that, people that act him, but I really think that he did a very good job in taking that character, and it was well written as well.
Yeah, and if you take a look at Deadwood, just the show itself, you see that there's a lot of politics going on. Like we were saying before, we have a lot of people making mass money in a lawless town.
Yeah, lawless politics.
Yeah, and it's they don't need someone to come in and mess that up for them. So I see the threat of Wild Bill coming to town, but then we see Seth Bullock, who again was a real person, who did take over for real the town marshal or sheriff. So it's very interesting how they portrayed that and how they made Seth Bullock, who already was a sheriff or a marshal, after Wild Bill's death, kind of taking on that role of what Wild Bill would want to do.
Yeah.
Which was kind of cool, because they became friends and stuff like that. And now, through everything I've read, I don't think they ever met. But it's it was interesting on the show. They showed that, like you said, he was trying to be a kind guy, trying to just make his way through. And what I did find interesting is there's a scene with him, Wild Bill, and Al Swearingen, where Al Swearingen says to him, I hope you would put this into a good light for the widow. And he goes, what's it worth to you?
Mm-hmm.
So he's already making a deal with Al Swearingen about how he can use his influence towards Alma. So it was, pretty interesting stuff, definitely for that first season. I mean, I don't know about you, but when Hickok got shot, that was just kind of really the first season. When I got stretch this out a little bit. Yeah,
right. Kind of sad to see him go.
Yeah,
I really like the idea too of how they played out all the commotion that went on and the hype after he died.
Yeah,
I mean, they've got the decapitated Indian head coming into town, and those guys are riding around with that. You got all these people running to the saloon to find out what's happening, or the distraction of that. I'm sorry, they were running to see what was happening with that, and then you got Bullock, who walks in upon him, and obviously I think at that point he was hoping that Hickok would take, the law into his hands at that point. I think at that point when he starts to show emotion and cry, I think what he's doing at that point is going, oh, fuck. Now I have to do this.
Sure.
This is there's nothing else I can do now, because who else is going to do it?
Yeah. And I've got to revenge this somehow.
Yes. Yep. And you can see Seth is struggling emotionally with a lot of demons.
Yeah. Well, and he's a good character, but when we first meet him and he he actually makes that guy hang.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Well,
But-
I think that establishes his character as he's going to do what needs to be done, no matter what.
Yep.
And he knows how to deal with, the roughneck and the mob mentality of individuals. That lawlessness that, was rampant around that era and that time.
Yep. And that's what you need. You needed someone with grit to get it done.
I'm crazier than you, and I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what he's pretty well done.
I won't turn him over for you guys, but I will do it myself.
Yeah, and I mean, look at what he did to McCall, because McCall was talking and talking and talking, and he pushes him down in the mud, and he says, "There's no law that says I can't beat your ass."
Right.
So I mean, he knows what he can and can't do, and he knows his own limits in general as a character. I think Hickok is, as well as a character, had that same notion.
Yeah.
He was smart, and it proves it and shows it throughout his character base, as well as the history that we've read in the past hour and a half. Go ahead.
Oh, what I was going to say is, even when we see Deadwood itself, they set the precedence as how this show is going to go. It's going to be dirty because you've got mud and it's always muddy. Now I don't think I don't remember seeing a dry street there.
No.
And the buildings are rough, and it's a mining camp, but you do need some sort of law, unfortunately, because this is where your Al Swearingens and these people can take advantage of that. But that's what made Deadwood Deadwood. And that's, until the telegraph, the wire comes through, you stay lawless. And then they put up a pretend government of themselves. So it's interesting. And one thing I wanted to say about David Carradine's character is that he fit that part. I mean, to his walk, to the way they dressed him, he looked like a great Wild Bill.
Yeah, it's the hoarseness in his voice, the way he talked, his mannerisms. The one thing that got me was the scene where McCall comes in and shoots him. You see him look up from his cards and then look down like he acknowledged. Well, he acknowledged he stepped in the room.
Yep.
So either way, even if he had his back to the door, which in history's books, it's what they tell us. And you were probably right. You visited the site, 6 times. You probably seen where he got shot, where the doors are, where the bar was, where this kind of could have happened. Not could have, where it did happen. And, either way they portray in the show, he knew his time was up.
Yeah.
Like he knew when he sat down, the possibility was there. He knew he had enemies, many of them. So I really like that moment. It was just that little bit of an eye flicker. He looks up, looks down, like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And he took it gracefully. So,
and I think after a while, living by the gun like he did, you're going to have an instinct.
Yes.
I don't think, I shoot a lot of fast draw and others. I shoot with a gun a lot, but I don't live by it. So I can only imagine that you're going to have that instinct of something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the drop on this guy. You're going to know. I think he, like you said, he knew. We also have that letter, which I think he knew he was never to return to his wife. Mm-hmm. So he knew the moment. So the other guy that I was thinking of was Jeff Bridges in Wild Bill.
Yes.
I'm not really a big fan of the whole movie. I think they kind of threw a bunch of stuff in. There's a lot of dream sequences or flashbacks or whatnot. But I think he did a good job. I think there was some really good moments there. I don't think he surpasses Carradine's character by any stretch of the imagination. I would like to see Carradine do a Wild Bill movie.
That would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think that would be something cool to, they could even do a mini series on it. I think that would be really, really cool.
Right, get on it, Netflix.
Yeah, come on. But I think there was parts in Wild Bill with Jeff Bridges that I really did enjoy. It showed that he had grit. It showed that he had, there were scenes in there where he showed that just everything that we read, was we had a good character who really just wanted to do right. There was no, what's the word I'm looking for? He didn't seek to find anything else but to do right and to do his due diligence as a lawman.
Yes, very true. And I really enjoyed Jeff Bridges as the actor in this character. The movie, I mean, it's a good movie for that era or that time of movie making.
Yeah.
We're talking 1995. There's a few actors or actresses in the movie I really didn't care for. David Arquette, Christina Applegate. They just didn't seem to fit very well.
No.
Obviously David Arquette plays Jack McCall. He does play a very good idiot, for lack of a better term. But I've always thought David Arquette was one anyway. But the thing I didn't really enjoy about the movie, and you talk about, being a good person, but to me, it really portrayed the real wild side of Wild Bill.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wildness going on. I mean, it's just constant. And I know that there was a very short period of time of his life, so I can understand why that could be that way, but I got a little off-played by so much of it. I really wanted to get more into the character build, the way he was, the way he acted, the way he kind of dealt with people. I think Alan Barkin did an okay job of Calamity Jane, but, Jeff Bridges alone, if they were to make a real Western, kind of like they make them now, I think he would pull that character off even better.
Yeah.
This was more of that time era of 95. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on in that era of movie making. I think sets were just starting to be built the best. You were getting that real feel. No real Western. The older Westerns, though, by far are better shows.
Yeah. I mean, I do like to see the reoccurrence of Westerns. I think it's a good thing, and I think we should support them no matter how they are. But I'm a big fan of the older Westerns myself. So
yeah, myself too.
I mean, I think there was, I can't remember who played him, but it was called Wild Bill Hickok, but he had no facial hair.
Oh, ouch.
Because back then they didn't have any facial hair. The actors weren't, I don't know if it was allowed or what, but I think even Wyatt Earp, the show, he had no facial hair, no mustache or nothing. So, it's that kind of stuff that I would like to see a show of, say, Wild Bill that's based on everything, the truth and the myth. I think it'd be cool to see. One thing, not to switch gears, but have you ever seen the Wild Bill AHC, American Hero Channel, Gunslingers version of it?
No, I have not.
If you ever get a chance, check it out.
I will.
The guy who, I should have sent you the link, but the guy who played Wild Bill in this show, he does a fantastic job. He has the rough voice, long hair, mustache. He actually kind of they go through kind of what we did here, visually, the storyline of him, the Dave Tutt and the Deadwood murder and stuff like that. And he does a fantastic job. I dare say maybe even better than Carradine.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, I know. I don't know. I wouldn't normally say that, but I have to say that he actually does a fantastic. I should maybe I'll post a link to the actor's name, but he really, really does a good job of playing Wild Bill. So, it's one of them things where I would hope to see something on a bigger scale, like a movie of Wild Bill or something like that. So,
Yeah, I mean, like Wide Earp,
Yeah.
that was a good movie as well. But you're going to see more. More is going to come out, and I'm hoping it's going to be. I hope more information, like you said, history reveals more about this character, Wild Bill, this person, Wild Bill. I'm sorry, as well as McCall and anyone else that was involved in his life. It just. I also, you know what? If anyone else out there listening to this show can actually find out where the hell that watch went or what it looked like or any information about the watch, man, email me at erv@charter.net. I want to know.
Yeah.
You
I
got me
think
intrigued.
it's just one of them things that we need to know.
Yes. I mean, like that watch, I think Wild Bill Hickok is going to stand the test of time.
Yep. And that's why he's my favorite.
And soon to be, if not already, mine.
Yeah. Well, hey, guys, I think this is all the time we have. I hope you enjoyed the show. Irv, again, thank you for stopping by and sharing the table with me.
Not a problem, brother.
Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes, favorite us on Stitcher, like our Facebook page, Final Shot Saloon Podcast. You can always talk to us on there. This has been Gunfighter Legends, presented by the Final Shot Saloon. Thank you so much.
Matt, thanks again.